this afternoon is Deputy Director Keith Niven. Can he be sworn, please?
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Mr. Niven, your full name, please.
It's Keith Andrew Niven.
I think you have made, in fact, 3 statements to the inquiry, which, Chair, you should have in, I hope, our file 2, behind divider A, 1, 2 and 3. And certainly, Mr. Niven, when you made your first statement to the inquiry, you were the then temporary Deputy Director of the NCA's CEOP Command. I think you are now, in fact, the Deputy Director Support to the NCA CEOP.
Yes, that's correct.
What, in layman's terms, is the difference between those 2 roles?
Well, my role as temporary Deputy Director concluded just at the beginning of December. And a new Deputy Director has now taken that role. I have provided support for that since that date, and now provide support whilst the inquiry is ongoing.
To help us perhaps accurately depict the way that the CEOP command is put into place, I think there is an organogram at NCA 000176. And we're just going to call that up on screen.
Yes, that's correct.
And so that we're aware, you are coming back to give evidence tomorrow.
Yes.
So in due course we can expand on any of the themes that we need to, and I hope take your evidence at a sensible pace this afternoon. Right. Just looking at that organogram, clearly there you are, sitting under CEOP Director Will Kerr. Could you just help the panel with the next row of the leadership team, and help us with what are the operations department or division, the governance and performance, the overseas territories, and the education, child protection strands?
So if we start with the grade 1, which is what G1 represents, that is an individual that has responsibility for the CEOP operations teams. There are 2 teams. One is based in London and one is based in the north. He also has a responsibility for an intelligence capacity as well, and a number of other posts that relate to operational work.
The strand below, the grade 2s, as they would then be.
Yeah.
What is their role?
So they are leadership positions as well, grade 2, and that equates to the teams that are being led in the north and the teams that are being led in the south as well.
And I think we can see along there the grade 2s that sit under the grade 1s in the respective teams. Is that the right word for them, teams? Or
yes, they are teams. They are teams of officers.
It might be helpful, Chair, and I should have said that organogram is in fact behind your tab 5 in the bundle. But if we also have a look behind your tab 6, and indeed at NCA 000177, just at where CEOP sits within the overall National Crime Agency leadership structure. And we can see at the top there, Lynn Owens is the Director General. And then there are 2 deputy directors, Mr. Horn and Miss Cope, one in relation to operations and one in relation to capabilities. In a nutshell, could you help us with what that practically means?
Yes, so we have a Deputy Director General that is operations, which is where CEOP sits under those. There are 4 areas there, priority areas for the agency. Will Kerr is the Director for Vulnerabilities, and that includes CEOP. It also includes modern slavery and human trafficking and vulnerability on borders. And the reason that they have been placed within the responsibility of Will Kerr is because there are crossovers. So in relation to child sexual exploitation, which is the first one there, vulnerability on borders, we're talking about child trafficking, and also modern slavery and human trafficking as well, that falls into that. And we found that there were overlaps between all of those policing areas and crime types, and it made absolute sense to ensure that we were working together in relation to focusing on the safeguarding of the individuals that were subjected to crimes under those headings.
Well, I hope that's a useful way of taking as a snapshot a picture of how CEOP works, and indeed how CEOP fits into the overall structure
Yes.
of the National Crime Agency. I think you are aware, Mr. Niven, that in opening this strand of the investigation to the panel, some time was spent looking at the chronology of CEOP and indeed how it's come to be in its current form. And so I'm not going to go over the background to the formation of CEOP at any length. But in summary, the Serious Organised Crime Agency was established in 2006, which itself was an amalgamation, I think, of the National Crime Squad, is that right?
Yes, that's true.
And other government agencies. And then CEOP was established as an affiliated organisation in April of 2006.
Yes, it was.
By October 2013, the Serious and Organised Crime Agency was effectively abolished and replaced with the National Crime Agency.
That's correct.
And I'd like, please, then to look at what you described as the fundamental changes at paragraph 27 of your first witness statement, which is the statement ending 163. There's no need to call it up onto the screen. Chair, you'll find that at page 14 of the first witness statement. Do you have that, Mr. Niven?
Yes, I do.
Is it fair to observe that most of what you describe as fundamental changes took place in 2013 and 2014 in various forms?
Yes, that's correct.
So that there is a little background to 2013 and those changes, is this right? That in 2012, there was an HMIC report that was being conducted, what became called Online and On the Edge.
Yes, that's correct.
And the field work was being done in 2012, although the actual report was not in fact published until 2015.
That's also correct.
That field work took part of an inspection to see how police forces performed their work to prevent online child sexual exploitation and abuse.
Yes, that's true.
And did that field work identify opportunities for there to be a more coordinated law enforcement activity to apprehend offenders?
Yes, it did.
So that was ongoing in 2012, and in due course that coordinated law enforcement response became what is called Operation Notarise.
Yes, that culminated.
Yeah. Now we'll look at Operation Notarise in due course, but just the background to it. There was also, I think you can help, an issue that arose within CEOP in relation to a failure to act on some Canadian intelligence. And I'd just like to ask you about that, because that culminated in an IPCC referral, Independent Police Complaints Commission referral, in 2014. And so, can I just ask you about that, please?
Yes, that was a referral that came to at that particular time, and the referral came into the agency. It was not acted upon, and not it didn't go through the normal processes that we would have today in relation to tasking, and as a consequence, there was delay in action being taken in relation to that referral.
Can I help you to this extent, Deputy Director, because the report itself is behind our tab 7, and if we could just call up, please, exhibit reference NCA 000196, it might help with the dates of the referral and the potential problem that was referred by the NCA. Could we turn to page 7, please? There was there not, at paragraph 20 I'm looking at, during 2011, there was an identified backlog of 2,458 referrals which required processing.
That's true.
And, forgive me, you can see there that CEOP created an operation to try and reduce that backlog,
Yes,
known as
that's
Operation W.
Yes, that's correct.
When one looks at paragraph 21, you'll see there reference to during Operation W, a backlog of 1,209 referrals developed within the Case Development Unit. And I just want to understand how Operation W led to there being a backlog of referrals within the Case Development Unit. Are you able to help with what that in effect means?
No, I haven't got the details in front of me, but clearly they were referrals that were not progressed with the relevant amount of resource and time.
The reason I draw the panel's attention to the backlog in 2011 is it feeds into the Canadian referral, which was referred by the Toronto Police Service, I think, in July 2012.
Yes, that's correct.
And essentially, the Canadian police forwarded an information package in relation to indecent images of children that related to the UK.
Yes, I think it was DVDs or films where they were contained.
Yeah. Essentially, there was I think a company in Canada that was distributing DVDs and online films of indecent imagery.
Yes.
And they were able to identify the UK suspects, hence the referral then to NCACR.
Yes.
So that referral came in July 2012. And to help you, Deputy Director, with the dates, in October of 2013, the Toronto Police, who had made the referral, requested an update on the matters they had referred. And it was at that point it was discovered that, in fact, the information by Toronto Police had not been acted on.
Yes.
As a result of that failure, the NCA made the voluntary referral to the IPCC, which led to the report that we are now currently looking at.
Well, there's something that happened in between that, which was that when Toronto requested an update in October 13, it was dealt with by way of independent review. So the current Deputy Director General at that point in time wanted it to be reviewed, and there were two reviews that took place into why there had been delays. He ensured that those referrals were then disseminated out to forces forthwith, and there were recommendations made as a result of the review that took place. During that time or shortly afterwards, it was discovered that whilst the NCA had one of those referrals, other crimes had taken place, so there was then a referral made to the IPCC.
The IPCC report concluded essentially that there were systemic failures rather than misconduct of individual officers.
Yes, that's correct.
And the IPCC made various recommendations so as to ensure that the delay in acting on the Toronto Police information didn't occur again.
Yes, that's right, and it followed very much the Harts review that took place and the other review that was also...
and I think at your paragraph 215 of your first statement to the inquiry, you deal there with the recommendations that were made and the steps taken by NCACR to put into effect those recommendations.
Yes, there was a series of recommendations that were all accepted and all acted upon.
Now, I interposed reference to the IPCC report and that failure because it spans some of the time frame of the fundamental changes that I was about to ask you about. So can we just look back at your paragraph 27 and look at some of those changes? And I'll go through each in turn, if I may, Mr. Niven.
Yes.
In your view, the changes were numerous and included the appointment of Chief Constable Simon Bailey as the MPCC lead for child protection and abuse investigations.
Yes, that's correct.
there was a new director of CEOP appointed on the 9th of December 2013. Now, why was that a fundamental change?
Well, that was there was a director prior to that, but I think the point being made here was that this was a new director now that was part of the NCA, CEOP NCA, where previously that wasn't the case. So this was a new individual that was working for a new organisation and was now taking that directorship role.
The NCA itself was mandated under the Crime and Courts Act to secure efficient and effective activities.
Yes, and that was a fundamental change because that wasn't something that was available prior to the commencement of the NCA.
And was it under that piece of legislation that I think the letter that was looked at in the opening address was written from the then director of the NCA to the then lead for the NPCC?
Yes, the Crime and Courts Act enables the Director General to ensure that there's an efficient and effective response to serious and organised crime, and this included child sexual exploitation.
We may look again at the letter in more detail in due course. In 2013, I think you say that the national plan implementing the 4P approach, namely pursue, prevent, protect and prepare, was implemented.
Yes, that's correct.
And in 2014, there was then firstly the first national coordinated operation, namely Operation Notarise.
Yes, this was significantly different because this was the first time that the police forces worked together to tackle the threat, and that was very much enabled by the fact that this was now the